Thank you. This is collective bargaining between the ATU representing the unit of employees at ECAT and the Escambia County Board of County Commissioners. It is July 23rd, 2021. It is 9:25 a.m. Central Standard Time. And welcome everybody to this collective bargaining session. We have a sign-in sheet that's gone around that will reflect the names of all the attendees. How are you today, Curtis?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
I'm good.
That's good. So I'll start out with, I sent the email as we talked about Article 31 being the topic of trying to work through today. We also have a couple of others that we think that we should be able to work through. But I don't have access to print and mass stuff like you do, so I'm just gonna say it. We don't have the resources for all of that. So Article 41, maintenance, education, and training. Article 39, tool allowance. And it's just the economic piece of the tool allowance. We believe that there's a TA on the non-economic side of it, so it's just the actual dollar amount. Article 26, operator seniority. We had some discussion over yesterday. Article 36, maintenance seniority. And Article 10, job postings. I think there was only one piece in job postings that we really couldn't agree to. So that's basically where we think we could be today and move on. And Article 37, uniforms and tools, of course, and maintenance.
Okay. Old business.
Do we need to go around the room?
Article,
Do you want to go around the room?
Just for the record.
Okay, good.
before we do that, Mike,
Yeah.
Article 5 and 6. Article 5, Mike's going to talk about Article 5.
6.
Well, yeah, and 6. But as our position didn't change, that we would definitely agree on combining them, but we're stuck on a few things. We're not stuck on time frames. We're flexible on that. We think it's too much, but we're flexible on that. But there's some other logistics in 5. I think we need to have some dialogue on that.
Okay, good. Maybe what we should do for the purposes of the recording is go around the room and have each of the attendees introduce themselves. I'll start. I'm Mike Mattamore.
Kristen Huell, County Attorney's Office.
Tanya Elsa, Escambia County Area Transit.
Rodriguez Kimbrough, Escambia County Area Transit.
Curtis Howard, ATU International Vice President.
Mike Lowry, ATU Local 1395.
Jim Stanton, Local 1395.
Elaine Wiggins, FST Local 1395/EK.
Crystal Dodura, County HR. Nikki Powell, Court Payroll.
Pam Childers, Elected Comptroller.
West Moreno County Administration.
All right, thank you, everyone. Just to recap about yesterday, it sounds like we have an agreement on Article 1. We restored the COPE language to Article 1, and we put language in Section 2 on union dues to reflect the statutory language. Article 2 on probationary period, we added written notice to the union when the probationary period is extended. We added the word discipline in Section 2. We struck the language with the employee's consent with regard to the union's ability to have an hour at orientation. In Article 20 on group health and welfare, we agreed to restore the language that the union may appoint one representative to serve on the county's employee benefits committee. I don't know if we can still reach an agreement on this because we checked with risk management, and our policy that provides the bond is only provided for operators. On uniforms, we will agree to, at Section 9, you asked us to increase the uniform allowance for part-time and trolley operators from $250 to $400. We'll agree to that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so I'll give you all of this. These are single-sided for purposes of considering signatures of DAs.
All right.
Here's double-sided copies for your records. Thank you. Okey doke. We're gonna talk about 31 today for sure. Wes wanted to continue the conversation on wages and, if you don't mind, we'll,
Before we
Yeah.
go any further, you didn't mention it, just a question, on, the one where it said that, we actually restore, but both parties mutually agreed for the supplier. Did y'all have any dialogue about that? We just wanted to have, input for the items.
yeah, but see, this is what, well, we lay out all the items and we're bound on those. So what, I mean, if we had a change, it would have to be renegotiated. It's not like having input.
And the items are listed.
The items are all listed and we're bound by them.
Right.
So,
But that doesn't mean that you can't change it, but okay, I understand.
yeah, but if we change them, we're changing the contract.
Right.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
But, so suppose something happens in between the 3-year contract.
Yeah.
You sign an MOU and it becomes a new part of the contract, so, but I understand. It's
Yeah,
not
that, I
something-
mean, if we want to change that, we have to go to you.
Right. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
So where I was at is, I agree these articles are important, but in my opinion, the most important thing in this contract has to do with wages, in my opinion. The pay rates and wages for the workers is what my number one priority is, and that's where I'm at. I know we offered or put something across the table yesterday. Probably wasn't as well received, although I did explain some of the methodologies, how we arrived at it. So first, my question is, do y'all have a counter to what we put across the table yesterday?
As far as wages, so the counter that we discussed yesterday verbally is the counter that we suggested. It never was broken apart for the actual, it was always, the MOU said you had to take this in total and not discuss it in part. So our counter to that yesterday is still the same. We wish to have the 3% that everybody else received in the county and still work on, as our conversation had yesterday, what would it be as far as the wage scale, the chart, the
Okay.
scale part.
In the email that I sent to them that was very specific in breaking it into an MOU would be effective immediately. Rather than what Ms. Huell said, which is she was correct, that if we do it the way you presented it, we would have to wait till the entire collective bargaining agreement was done and ratified before the employees would receive the raise. So the way we proposed it in writing to you before was if we can reach an agreement on the wages, it would be put in an immediate MOU and then incorporated into the contract at the end.
And the further that we agree with the language that you sent over about the new hires and the progression, that part of it. So
Okay.
we believe there's still more to have some dialogue on, but we're good on one end. We were trying to close out the other part of it.
Well, one of the issues yesterday, I believe, that kind of probably didn't come across to you guys all that great, was when we brought people to scale other than the, probably entry-level folks. Turned out to be about 1%, give or take. I don't think, certainly that wasn't well received, I understand. I'm willing to take you to scale and add 1.5% on top of that. plus whatever the board decides to give October 1st.
So close to, let me make sure I calculate, close to 2.5, is what you're saying.
Give or take, it'll fluctuate depending on,
Plus what the board gives in October.
plus what the board gives in October,
Working through the budget cycle.
working through the budget cycle. Now, that has to be ratified by the board.
Mhm. Well, obviously, it has to be ratified by the membership.
Absolutely.
Would that be, that would be considered an MOU, is that correct?
In my opinion.
I have a no over here.
But we'll need a caucus on it.
Okay,
But let's start with that basic concept.
All right, so it's an additional 1.5% plus what the board would give across the board in
You
October.
you come to the new pay scale, which equates to 1%, some a little more, some a little less, plus an additional 1.5%. And then whatever the board agrees to give the rest of the county employees, October the 1st.
okay, so I just, because I want to make sure we're on the same page, I want to make sure I understand. You're saying the 1.5 above what's been already offered for all classifications.
Yes.
Which is the one that's 625.
So what you said yesterday, 1%, and it's only 1%. Well, now it's gonna be 2.5%, roughly.
Right.
It's fine, like I said, depending, it's not exactly 2.5, but
I understand.
pretty close.
I understand.
I'm trying to move the needle.
I got you.
I'm about the wages, I'm about the wages for the employees. Yes, this other stuff's important. I want to get the wages settled.
And we do too, so we appreciate you doing that.
So will you also have your discussion about whether it's an immediate MOU or,
Yeah, we'll meet, we'll come out with
okay,
it.
so,
This is my basic precept.
We got you, we'll caucus. While we talk, while we're signing this, we'll caucus on that, we can have with you right away.
Do you want to talk caucus now?
Yeah, but I do wanna, ask you, how do you wanna proceed with which articles, when we get back together, after we clarify what we have here, which article do you wanna hit first? So we'll.
The one that we,
talk
in my
about that.
opinion, the one we think we can get through
Okay,
the quickest.
okay.
I think that'll let us knock more things out.
Okay.
like that.
All right, so yeah, let us caucus, Mike, real quick, and we'll come back with the signed documents and give you what we have. Thank you, Wesley, appreciate you.
Yep.
Thank you. I'll call either Miss Ellis or Ms. Kimbrough to let you know when we're ready. Yeah.
Please, please. Fully read again.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're back from caucus. Thank you, everyone. I believe the administrator has something that he would like to present for your consideration.
Been a little bit of change since I was in here last.
Okay.
Instead of 1.5%, in addition, it's gonna be, we're gonna offer you 2% on top of the adjustment to scale.
Okay.
That's what's in this MOU
Okay.
that I'm fixing to pass out.
All right.
And I guess it's something else that, when we went into caucus, we were going to talk about whether we could do it by MOU or not. So obviously, the answer to that is yes, because we prepared an MOU for your consideration.
Okay, well, we do have a couple of questions. We want to look at what it is, but,
Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
We can, you definitely took one of our questions away by using this, but the other one we had was the question of, and we're going to use the maintenance one, and if there's any questions for the operation people that ask me, I know Mr. West will understand. So if I'm a Tech 1 right now, and I'm at 2116, and I stay there, just as an example, 10 years, and I get the across-the-board wages that the commissioners give. And just say I'm at $25 now, and I finally get to Master Tech 10 years later, and the master's tech is at $24.79. I'm making more than the master tech now. What happens?
You're gonna get 10%.
Well, no, but I'm saying I would be making $25 an hour now. Master tech is making 24.
Well, you're gonna get 10% or the bottom of the pay grade, whichever is higher.
So
Correct?
So you'll either stay at where you are if it's higher.
No, if you promote,
He just said 10%.
I don't know.
what we do right now, well, what I'm used to, and Crystal, correct me if I'm wrong, you're gonna get 10% or the bottom of the pay grade of the new, what you're promoting to. Whichever one of those numbers is higher, that's what you will receive.
Okay, so.
So if it's sorry, I just wanna
No,
make
we
sure,
need to
yeah,
understand,
for
'cause
sure.
I don't live in the
Same
system,
pay
so
grade.
I need to understand. And I don't
Okay,
know.
that's what I wanna make sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Same pay grade, 10%, because it's a promotion, right? So you're going from a 1 to a 2 to a 3, right? So
Right.
that's a 10% increase. Because in the same pay grades, you're not gonna go to a new pay grade, minimum of the new pay grade or the 10%. Because you're already within that same pay grade, it's 10%.
All right, so for my example, if I'm a lower classification moving to a higher classification, but I've been in my classification for 10 years, and all of let's just say for the sake of that every year the commissioners have been given 3%. So now I'm at $25 an hour, and when I go to my new scale, you're saying it's 10% on top of the scale that's there now?
So if you go to a new pay grade, so you go from pay grade A5 to pay grade A6, it's either a 10% or the minimum of the new DVM. So if you're at,
Whichever is higher.
correct, whichever's higher.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so for my reference, I go back to what I'm most familiar with. If I have an operator 3, or let's say I have a scientist making 17 something an hour. Suppose that scientist, he's been there 5, 6 years, he's got his 2%, 3%, whatever the cost of living's been.
Right.
He promotes to a field supervisor that starts at 19 something an hour at the moment. Well, maybe he's making more than 19 something an hour because of this. Well, then he's gonna get 10%. Now, if he's only been there a year or 2 in that pay grade, and he promotes to a field supervisor, and 10% is not as much as what the base rate is for a field supervisor, he's gonna get that minimum base rate.
Okay.
He's gonna get whichever one is higher.
That answers my question.
That's how we do
Like,
it.
we didn't know that happened, but yeah,
Yeah. That's how it's done.
Okay.
I can give you the policy too. It specifies that.
I would ask for consideration and put that policy in the contract, so when people would know that.
It's county policy, so I can give you a copy of it.
Okay.
Oh, you want
Go
it?
ahead.
One in the contract.
Yeah, I think it's better in the contract, because if I'm considering making a move, I might be an employee that didn't know to consider the county policy. So we're okay with the county policy being in the contract, that's all we're saying. So when we pick up the contract and we're getting ready to make a move, we know.
I don't think that would be a problem. It's our policy.
Right. So, and I appreciate that, because that was our concern. Then, we also wanted to try to add a sentence somewhere in the MOU that would say that the base rate does not include annual increases provided by the county commissioners. So new people that come in, the existing employees would know that, but the new people coming in would understand that this is a base rate, and it doesn't move like it used to move on the base rate. So we
Correct.
would just want that one sentence, or something similar, it doesn't have to read the way I said it, but we want people to know that that this is a base
This
rate.
MOU
not
does
your
not
annual.
affect the base rate,
Right,
the base entry level rate.
correct. Well, any
We're-
rate in the chart.
We're in agreement with that.
And then that was it. So with that being said, we do want a quick caucus. We were close on where we were anyway, we just wanted to clarify these issues. So I just wanted to see where the team is now and read over this and call you right back in.
Okay.
Perfect.
But thank you.
Hold on, 1 second.
Hey.
So what we also wanted to do was,
Or no, maybe, no, it's not working.
Yeah, don't overthink it.
no, we just wanted a chart showing it with
Don't
every.
overthink it.
No, we just wanted a chart that, once we sign the MOU, that showed what every classification would be at. That's not unreasonable.
We've done that, so we can probably.
Right, that's all we wanted, that's
Oh,
not.
okay, you've already done it.
That's just so we'll know where everybody's supposed to be upon
That's
signing
not-
the MOU.
Not a problem.
So just give us.
Because they're all gonna ask.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come on now, we're almost there.
No, we didn't.
Almost halfway there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll shake your hand again. You might shake it or anything.
I think so.
Mr. Kimball, you gotta, can you stop? Or you try to pull it? As my son said, you got that one job.
Lights red.
All right, thank you, sir. So, points of clarity, and then I'll move to where we're at. So the way it reads, we just want to clarify and make sure we say it across the table, that effective upon the first full cycle, all employees will receive the base rate that's here. For example, a top operator would make $19.84. The bottom sentence says that they would receive on top of the $19.84 an additional 2%. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct?
So our point of clarification in the way it reads is that at the second sentence, existing bargaining unit members shall be increased by an additional 2%. I think it should read that way.
Yeah, we could say it that way, or the new hourly rate.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Well, we just wanted, it reads a little.
That's fine.
Yeah,
So
that's our intent.
That's that, and so we have an ask, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
It's even funny to me, but yeah, it's pennies, but we would,
Is this his ass?
that the existing employees, because
The
we're
math
like,
person.
we're like 0.2% off of 3% from the whole offer.
002.
0.002. Is it possible we can have that 0.002 where the
Well,
existing employees would?
It's 1 penny.
The thing is, we went from 1.5 to 2 because at 1.5, it upsets the pay scale. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but when we pull away from the pay scale, it upsets the clerk's whole payroll formula. So I know it's only pennies, but.
Did you say clerk? Well, we definitely want to upset the clerk then.
No, we don't
Not
want to,
just
I
me.
promise you,
It's
wait,
Crystal
I
too.
promise you, we do not want to upset the clerk. But just for the ease of implementation, I kind of like to keep it like we got it.
We good with it. But we do want to mess with the clerk in the court.
I'll do it for Nikki.
Yeah, we'll do it for Nick.
But now, we do, when we went back to caucus, we had some more discussion about your question.
Okay.
Because apparently as we discussed, we finally figured out, I think, what you were asking. And initially, I didn't understand. So I'm gonna let Crystal take this one.
And that's the question with, if I was here for a period of
Pay
Yes,
grades
yes,
and
yes.
different progressions and whatnot. So if you were a cleaner, which is it's an A3, and you go to a fueler, which is an A4, those are considered different pay grades, because it's A3 to A4. So for an A3, if you're at 1237 and you're getting a promotion to a fueler because you're going to different pay grades, and the bottom of that pay grade is, let's say it's 1250. You're either going to get a 10% or the minimum of the DBM. So if the minimum of the DBM is 1325, then you're gonna go to the 1325. You're not gonna get a 10% on the 1237, whatever the higher is.
So it's that number or 10%, whichever is higher.
We understood.
I understood.
However,
Now, this is
with,
where we misunderstood.
correct, so this one, the maintenance, so like the technician 1, 2, 3, and master technician, that is a pay grade of B5. That is the same pay grade. It's not a 10% addition between the two. So if you're a technician 1 and you're making 2116, you go up 6% once you reach technician 2 to the 2245. Once you receive the ASCs, you know, obviously there's requirements for
Those
those
are
positions.
above and
Correct.
beyond.
Correct. So then you would go up 4% to the technician 3. And then from technician 3 to master technician, you would go up 6%.
Right. But our question was, and that's why I took the maintenance one, was if I'm at a tech 1 at 2116, but because of my tenure and getting 3% across the board, I may be at $25.
Right.
And if I become a master tech, which is at $24.79,
Right.
So
It's just a
what we, so
percentage.
what we would, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
So it would just be a percentage on top of that rate that you're currently making.
Your current rate will then receive the percentage. You
So
wouldn't-
either
you wouldn't
6%.
go down.
what would that percentage be?
Just same percentage as it is now in the contract.
646.
6%, 4%, 6%. Because it's not a promotion to a different classification. As it states in the contract right now, those steps, while they're in the same pay band, the same classification, they have a number against them. When you do the numbers, it works out to 6%, then the next step goes 4%, then the next step goes 6%. So rather than try to tie it to these numbers, which would lock you in and make you upside down, even though you've got 3% COLAs, once you achieve the next level for Master 2, 6%.
So if you're a technician 3 and you're making more than 2479, and you go to master technician, you get 6%.
Gotcha, I understand.
Okay.
You clarified that.
Yeah, okay. I didn't understand.
No,
I didn't understand
yeah.
the question.
That's why we have to have a conversation,
Right.
dialogue on this
Yes,
stuff.
right.
So,
So-
we're good. So, we're ready to sign it, Mike, with the rate chart that Ms. Nikki said they already done, attached to it, and making that one sentence, adding that one sentence about the base rate annual, so people will know that this is a base rate, it doesn't include the county commissioners'
As
increases.
far as the rate chart, you just want your employees and what their new pay rate will be, right?
Yes,
That's okay.
yes, and each classification.
And just making
Yes,
sure.
yes. And changing that verbiage we just talked about to read,
Chris has made that change.
yeah, so we're good with it, Wes, and we appreciate your movement.
And we understand we sign it after
Do you
it's
want to-
ratified.
Do you
So
want to,
when would you put that on the
Well,
agenda?
now, when we did EMS, they actually signed it prior to going to the board.
Well,
We will sign it before the board.
we have to ratify it too.
Yeah, we have to take it in front of our
So I
members, we have to have a
haven't asked.
special, we have to have a special
do you
meeting.
want
I haven't asked because of COVID. They make things easy. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. The ask is, could I utilize the conference room in ECAT for an entire day so people can come in and out and cast their vote for the bargaining unit employees?
Same meetings this week.
Yeah.
That would that
Well,
be?
this week is safety meetings, so, well, this week's almost over, so, I mean,
Today
like,
is the last day.
yeah, today is the last day.
And the reason why, it helps us get a vote quick, instead of having to go to the
Prior to
meeting hall
vote.
and trying to get all that, whatever.
Prior to the board.
Does that take all week or?
No, we just need one
I
day.
just need one day.
One day.
I just need to let all bargaining employees know that they can come in. And because of COVID, it's individuals
And
coming
they can
in.
vote on this, and then Mike is authorized at that point to sign.
I'll leave that to Rodriguez and Tanya.
I don't have a problem with it, just let me know what day you're talking about, and what hours.
It would be like a 77, it would be a 12-hour span.
Yeah,
We have to allow everybody an opportunity to come and go.
What day?
Let me get that to you by the end of the day. I need to look at my calendar because there's a couple things going on next week.
And we
I'm
have
in
to-
negotiations, I think.
And we have to put a notice
Another-
up for at least 24 hours so people know they are coming to vote.
And we need to know what hours So you said a 12-hour period, but 7 to 7 as far as making sure that there's staffing that's there for the time.
No, we got it.
I'm thinking.
This is more flexible because it has to go in front of the county board of commissioners anyway. So we'll definitely be finished by the next board meeting because it was just yesterday. So,
Yep. I'm thinking probably Thursday, because Wednesday I'm supposed to speak to ITL, so.
I will work to
Put it
get
on the
this
agenda.
on the August the 5th meeting. Now, I will not be at that meeting because I will be on vacation, I hope. But Ms. Bowers will be sitting in my seat, but we've done the heavy lifting here and it's on the agenda. I'm confident that it'll go through.
Is that a night meeting?
It
Yes,
is, it is.
It
I'm
Okay.
confident that we'll be all right.
Very good. Very good. This has been the most movement I've seen in a while, and I appreciate that.
Well,
At least a lot of communication there.
I'm about-
to understand where we're at.
I am about employees and I'm about wages. And irregardless of anything else, employees deserve,
Right.
they deserve to be compensated. They, like you said, they've worked through a pandemic. All of our county employees, you know, the one thing about the county, we never shut down.
So we
All our public works guys, all our parks guys, all our beach guys, and my beach guys, the bridge is down and they're riding an hour and a half to get to work to make it,
Travel.
to make 1071 an hour.
See,
So,
I travel 32 miles a day every
yeah,
day back to
so
work.
I'm about the employees.
yeah.
That's no problem.
You know, when I got in my truck this morning, I was determined that we were gonna get through this article.
Or the original will be signed.
The original will be signed after ratification, but this is just a TA.
Well, and Wes, I must say this on the record that we feel like it was a compromise on both sides. And as I said yesterday, we didn't feel like that was available to us. So we appreciate the compromise on both sides.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's all we ever wanted.
So what we're signing for the record is a tentatively agreed upon agreement on wages, subject to ratification by both parties.
I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't hear you because I was trying to get this to you.
Okay,
Can you repeat it, please?
sure. What we're doing now is we're tentatively agreeing to a wage article, and it has the negotiator's signature on it, but it is subject to ratification by the bargaining unit and the public employer.
Yes. And I'm giving you now that memorandum for the wages. And I'm also giving you the one that we had earlier. We had to sign copies as well. So between yesterday and today, we made more than a little movement. We made major progress. And we still think today we have room this afternoon for more.
Perfect.
That's your original. Excuse me, copy.
It doesn't have Mike's signature.
Oh, okay. Well, since I wrote on this one, at the time, I'm going to give this one back to us.
We got it right. Okay.
So Wes, I would suggest maybe we catch a lunch and kind of reset. I think we had a good morning.
Yep.
And then come back and jump into some other stuff.
Okay, what time will we be back? 12:30?
12:30, if it's all right with your team.
Good for us.
As long as we can get through getting the food. 12:30 is the goal, but we've had moments where
Two pages.
when we're being served food, it take a little longer, but that's the
Well,
goal.
we'll call you if we have.
Okay,
anything.
sounds good.
I don't want you to think if it's 12:45 or 12, whatever,
Oh, no.
that we were doing that on purpose.
That's why I tried to go early. because if everybody else goes lunch at 12.
We're gonna walk down here on Palafox.
Okay, good
That's
deal.
all I gave.
Doghouse is really good.
Doghouse, right?
Will this room be locked? Can I leave my stuff in
It is not locked, but I can put it in my office.
there? Yeah, I don't mind. I just didn't want to choke on with my laptop.
Yeah, I just don't want to throw all this stuff back and forth.
I don't care
I
about
can
the
figure out how to
paperwork.
lock it. I'll ask someone and I'll make sure it's locked. And if
Yes.
it's not, I'm gonna stick it in this closet, which is locked.
I just don't want to carry it all, tablet around.
I heard him say something about the dog house. What the dog house?
It's right down the street.
That's where you stay at all the dang other time.
Okay, it's,
Yeah, that man, you heard that man say, it. You heard that man.
is it okay that it's on?
Yeah.
I mean, I can keep it to one page.
No, no, that'd be too small.
If you could just put
All right, Rodriguez, we'll turn it off.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sorry to get on. Ooh, that's serious?
Yes.
Well, is that the, we can go in a different direction, whatever you want.
Is there an article that we think we're semi-close on?
Can we just make an
Oh,
announcement that
you
we
did say that,
reconvene?
I thought, posting the rules, why not? We can talk about two allowance.
It's a short article.
From our perspective, the maintenance two allowance was just about, we wanted, to get the same thing that the county employees got. That was our, what we wanted, the language doesn't change. We were just asking for that increase. I think we get like $700-800 now.
Right now, we get 800, and the county gets 1,000.
What is it? 1,100?
Yes, about 1,100.
I think there's two issues with tool allowance. One is the amount. The other is that there was some language that appears in your proposal that is kind of, it has to do with the cycle of the contract that was negotiated. Because it says, in the first year of the contract, any unused allowance can be rolled over, but after that it can't. So I think we have to just update that. But what we're willing to do is we're willing to take the tool allowance to $900 as a compromise, but it doesn't roll over, because we got to just fix that whole contract.
Okay. So wait, let's see. Let me make sure I'm on the same page.
So I guess it would be our language on tool allowance, except we would change $800 to $900.
Excuse me, Mike, what are you talking about rolling over?
In the language that you gave us, it came out of the old contract for First Transit. And it was obviously written for, at least this is what you gave us. It says in the first year of this contract, any unused allowance can be rolled over, but not after that. So I guess what it must have been, the timing of the contract was maybe not at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were allowing a rollover because there might not have been a full year to spend money. I don't know. That's, I can't tell you because I didn't negotiate
Yeah,
that
that's why
contract.
I'm not understanding,
It says-
because nothing, we don't have anything that rolls over right now.
Right, and that's, but your language says, such remaining allowance may be carried over from the first year of the agreement to the second year of the agreement, but may not be carried on beyond.
I got you.
Mm.
Right?
I got you.
Okay.
Step outside for a second. Jimmy, step outside real quick. You're just gonna step out one second.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I just took it out. I don't know why I did that.
Yeah, would you please? Do you want me to? Sorry.
Might have to, our recess, our caucus, we can agree to the verbiage, the language, that's not an issue for us. For the rest, my guys want the same thing that the county got. We've been beat up throughout this process about keeping things across the board with the county, and they'd like to make that extra $100 on their tuition allowance as well. That's our counter, that we agree to the verbiage, and you give us that extra $100 or so, we at the same.
Well, equivalent amount.
All right, I'll counter back to that. We stay at $900, but instead of the mechanics having to bring in receipts and all that sort of stuff, we'll give them the money.
We give them a what?
We'll give them the money in their paycheck.
Does that change the game?
Want to step back outside?
No, I'm trying to figure out, because right now, the county workers get $100 a month.
Not 95, I think.
They get it on their paycheck.
Right.
$95 a month, that is, comes on their paycheck. So they, in other words, when they go to the tool truck and they buy whatever tool it is they buy, that's it. Now, this month they choose, they're not gonna buy a tool this month. They still got the money on their paycheck.
We're willing to do that. Give you $900 in your paycheck.
At one time?
But if you bring
Well,
that,
it would be divided by.
Not at one time.
No, divided.
I don't know. I don't even know what the county workers do out there.
No. I'm sorry. You know, because if you're any type of a mechanic or anything like that, you're gonna blow that instead of buying tools. And so, no, that's not an incentive. I mean, tool allowance is not an incentive. It's not a bonus. It's for you to buy tools.
you're worried that they're gonna spend it.
Well, that's on them. It's on them to be responsible.
Yeah. Somebody goes short one week.
I mean,
They
the reason
put
I
up
say,
buying tools.
but the reason,
No, it's not an incentive to pay your power bill or anything like that. It's an incentive to buy a tool. That's why it's called a tool allowance.
well, that's what the money's for.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is it's a different way of tracking it, rather than bring the receipt, scan the receipt, here we are tracking who spent what.
It's given
You're
the
at your
power-
limit, no, I'm not at my limit.
It's given the power to the mechanic.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's how we do it, out there.
Talk about
No, let's finish it, work it through.
Yeah, I mean,
The only part we had difference is the money. Let's talk about it.
I'm good. I'm good with the $900, but I think it shouldn't be an incentive, across the board.
Okay, but then
If you're good with it, if you're good with the 900, like, leave it like it is, we can do that.
We'll write it up.
Okay? 900.
We can do it.
See, that's why we don't need to talk about it later.
I'm good.
Oh, y'all gonna write
It's
it
an
up.
improvement, it's an improvement, so we're
Yeah, I'm good.
We're happy.
I'm good.
I see his point, though, he's worried that somebody will break a tool that's $500 and they don't have, you know?
Yeah.
You wanna take a stab at seniority?
I think Mike's ready, I'm hoping.
I mean,
Well, it's not us, I think Mike was gonna bring it back to us.
With seniority?
Yeah,
I have a seniority article.
oh, that'd be great. Got another TA, looks like,
Wait, so
we're on a roll.
paid,
On a roll, man, we on a
paid
roll.
monthly or
It's the
this
way
is
it
paid
is.
monthly, or you're keeping it the way it is?
The way
Keep it the way it is.
Keep it the way it is.
So they'll bring the receipt in, scan it.
take one person out.
I don't know if I have any other copies.
If you need it.
I need a copy.
Oh, wait, no.
No. But I showed it to you.
And I'm,
Wait, so, can we just go paragraph by paragraph for a second?
That's gonna help us
The,
get,
the very first paragraph, it says, leaves without pay in excess of 60 days. So you're saying if someone is out because of an injury, for instance, and they're on FMLA, for instance, right? Because they broke their leg, and it's over 60 days, their seniority date would be adjusted then when they return.
So that's consistent with the county's policy. It's in the county's HR policy manual.
I'll tell you why that's problematic for us. We drive buses, we get illnesses, we get, rotator cuff problems, we get a bunch of injuries just by the type of work we do. So being out 60 days, if you have to have surgery or something else, we don't want people to lose this. That part of it is problematic for us. You know, we generally have, like me, we get guts and stuff like that, we get sick and very much can be out because of a medical issue. So that's problematic for us in our industry. We're not just come to work, sit behind the desk type of people. Rotator cuffs are very problematic in our industry because of the design of the buses. So we have people that, when you go to that surgery, you're out longer than 60 days. I think it's a minimum 90 just to recover from it. So those type of, I'm not saying everything in here, but that one that says leaves without pay in excess of 60 days, we're not guaranteed that our members will always have that much time built up.
Okay? I'm just go through it, tell me what you like or don't like about it, and I'll take notes.
And that's all.
Anything else?
I'm looking, it's gonna. So, I see a lot. People ask questions on it, so. Wes, and Mike, I just want to say this to you. If we were talking about the operational unit, seniority is not as much emphasized in that kind of bargaining unit.
Correct.
It's just not, right? We all understand that and agree. But in the transit industry, seniority is a major ongoing thing that, you know, affects them in picking their schedules, picking their vacation, which is different than the operational unit, that they have the annual leave and they use it in increments of what, is it 2 hours or 4? They could use it
They could
in
use-
low
they could
numbers.
use it in an
We
increment of an
can't,
hour.
we can't do that, right? We have to pick our vacation in the November prior to the year. And sometimes you're picking your vacation a year out, you know, and you're stuck with it. So seniority is important to someone that's been there a long time. And so some of the language about, and then an individual that makes the decision to transfer over from one department to another, we want to have the language that's under time of service seniority and the departmental and the dual seniority. The dual seniority, for instance, that language was there because we had a major incident. Mr. James McIntyre, who was an individual who went from being a bus operator, got hurt, back injury, ended up going to customer service, was out a long time, had surgery, Tanya, right? And then came back and finished his career driving the bus. So we had to, but to maintain and protect him, we had to have dual seniority language. We had to implement that into the contract. It wasn't there. We did that. Because I think it was problematic. There was some case study in arbitrations with that protected him, right? And so it's not, can you explain to me what some of the problems are with the seniority language that has been struck in all the way through and why you strike through it in that way?
Well, I was just speak to seniority. And as you're correct, in my career with the county, and especially being in the ranks and being supervisors and what have you, I do believe that seniority is important in some regards, such as layoffs, last in, first out. At least the seniority should absolutely play a role in that. Honestly, I don't believe somebody should be promoted into a position just because they've been there longer than employees shouldn't necessarily go up based solely on seniority over employee B. If employee B is a higher performer or more skilled employee and is truly a better fit for that position, I believe that management or supervision should be able to promote the most skilled, the most qualified person for that job, and not have to be tied to, this guy sure would play a better role, be better for us in the organization in here, but he's don't have the seniority, so he's out. We got to promote this guy because they've been here longer. To me, I don't understand how an organization can truly be successful in that regard. That's some of my thoughts
Okay.
on seniority, just being as open and honest as I can be.
So the promotional side of it, I'm not so far off from you, but when it comes to seniority, for instance, bus operators, maintenance employees, they pick based on their seniority. Let's just use bus operators as an example. We're all doing the same work, and we have what we call a bid or a choose-up. And it's based on seniority when you pick those selections of that schedule. It's based on your years of service.
Okay.
Billy Carter, he's got 47 years, picks first. We believe that he has that right to pick based on the bid and look up there and go, you know what? It's his choice. He's the #1 guy on the list. He should look at it and go, I'm gonna pick that schedule right there, and I'm gonna get off at 1 o'clock every day because I've been here 47 years, and I'm gonna pick this day off and this day off. Right?
And the point of that is, it's different type of work, and that's what we've been saying during these negotiations. It doesn't make a difference. Out of 50 routes, they all need a bus driver behind them. You pick by seniority, that's how you pick the routes. The time, the off days, all of that is combined. That's what Mike's saying. So it's a little different than the setup that you're referring to, because it's not a promotion. It's every 6 months, every 4 months. It just depends on, every property does something different that you do a pick. Usually every time the summertime and the wintertime, we do a pick. So it gives you an opportunity to have, not to have chaos. It doesn't make a difference which route. All of them have to be serviced.
Sure, absolutely.
So our nature of the business is different than the average industry, right? So that's why seniority is important to us. And then when vacation picks come, it's the same way. You're just picking your vacation because we have to plan it ahead of time so that management knows that you gotta have a relief on these routes, for this week. Curtis is gonna be gone, I know I have to fill it. So that's why we do things a little different than the normal industries. That's why seniority is so important to us. And as you said when we was talking about the pay scale, you know, yeah, the person that's been here for a while, you want to take care of your employee, right? So they'll get that ongoing, and that's the same thing here. We want to make sure that they just get their ongoing picks first, because they've been here, they've been at the bottom and kind of sacrificed, and now they should have an option.
I think that's a good tie-in too. Because I think you're talking about seniority in bids and assignments. So let's broaden this conversation a little bit and tell us about 31.
Okay. You want to have them, you gotta tell them to have them.
Oh, let me see if I got it.
So we made copies of it so we can kind of talk through it, everybody is on the same page.
Curtis,
And Mike, one last.
I brought a old shoes up, this is from 2020. Just because sometimes when you visualize it, I know Lane's here, Mike's here. When you're talking too far those assignment runs, it's sometimes helpful to have
Very much so.
the choose up, so when we're talking about it, what does it look like, what is that process? So I brought one of the old ones.
That is a good point, 'cause
Mhm.
I have to ask a lot of questions for some of this stuff.
Well, see, seniority goes not only for the drivers, but for the mechanics, because we pick our vacation, we pick our choose up and stuff like that, but, you know, the choose up can be manipulated.
The article that was proposed doesn't eliminate seniority. It's a simplified version with time and service.
I understand that, but if you're in classifications, instead of just being an employee, they can manipulate the classification.
Well,
Think about it, say, there's only two Tech 3s. Carlos can make the shoes up, put both Tech 3s on the night shift.
Well, let me just interject.
And I'm just saying, you understand what I'm saying? It can be manipulated.
All maintenance, but Mr. Stan, all maintenance, not to interrupt you, all maintenance, technicians are all one job classification.
That's not how it's put on the shoes up.
so let me go back to choose up. I think I kind of understand choose up in the bus routes, because you're picking your route, or you're picking your
vacation.
Vacation.
I kind of understand it in that regard. In the shop, when you say choose up, what do you mean in the shop?
Well, choose up, the maintenance manager makes the choose up 3 times a year. Okay, unless it's an emergency choose up or something like that, because we're down so many people, it's unreal. So you've got master mechanics, you got Tech 3 mechanics, you got Tech 2 mechanics and stuff like that. So he could put all Tech 3 mechanics on nights if he wanted to. He could put all master mechanics on nights if he wanted to. There's a way to manipulate it. You understand what I'm
I don't think that has
saying?
anything to do with.
We've got a lot of
senior
side
or
conversations going for the
Okay.
recording, I don't know if it's.
Okay.
Jim, can I interject now? I just want to address something, because I know what you're talking about is absolutely correct in the past,
Hmm?
with the previous maintenance manager. And I know myself, Mr. Kimbrough, Mr. Zambrano, that's one thing we're working away from, is the manipulation of the maintenance shoes up.
Mhm.
You know, in the past, that's been done, where there be a certain number of Tech 1s on putting, because we all know who, without putting the names on them, we all knew who that Tech 1 was, who the master Tech was placing in those slots, so really they didn't have an opportunity to actually choose. Am I correct? So we're trying to move away from that, so that actually they're for the true ability to choose based on seniority, and not basically, I'm gonna put this Tech 2 when I already know it's only 1 or 2. So I'm just acknowledging, yes, that's what happened in the past, and we are committed to go away from from what was being done in the past. Because I'm fully aware that was part of what was being done.
Okay.
So, I mean, you choose up in the shop, you're choosing up the shifts, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Whether it be day or day shift, or
Days,
night shift?
days or night shift.
And what else does that choose up in the shop?
Off days.
Off days as well. Because we had 2 people on 410s, and now they've taken the 410s away from us.
So,
Due to
off days,
And vacation.
And
shift,
vacation.
vacation. So, if I'm not in his role, but if I was in his role and I said, hey, I need you're gonna do a great job on this bus today. And say the guy goes, no, I'm not, because I'm the most senior guy.
No,
So it doesn't affect any of that.
We don't,
No.
it's different than
No.
operators.
No.
We don't choose the work
No.
by seniority.
Okay.
no.
Yeah. We choose.
Well, that's a big step for me.
Yeah,
That's-
no.
That's a
We choose
big
the
step,
shift,
man,
the all day and the
because I'll be
vacation.
upfront with you, I've heard that.
No, because we go to the muster every morning,
Uh-huh.
and the boss hands out the work to us, and that's what we're
That's what,
assigned.
okay.
And as soon as we get done with that job, then we report back in and we get another assignment. I mean, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, that's the way it
Gotcha.
goes, yeah.
And if there's anything in between, then we cover in between. what
Right.
We're trying to do back and forth.
Good, I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah, I mean, no, no, you don't tell your supervisor,
Now,
no.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Wes, there are bigger transit properties that do stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think it's chaotic, like Chicago Transit does it. And when you got 700-800 mechanics, that's chaos.
That's chaos.
And but everything about Chicago Transit is chaos to me.
I can only imagine.
So, yeah, but most of the time, you won't see that the work is not distributed in the maintenance section by seniorities, actually.
So the choose up in the shop is shift, vacation, and off.
mhm.
But what has happened was in the past, they would place in those open positions on, say, first shift. I need 2 maintenance, I need 2 master techs, I need 1 tech 2, I need 1 tech 1. Okay, we only have 1 tech 1. So everyone already knows that basically they don't have that opportunity to all choose, because you're putting that classification in that choose up, which is one of the things we have had discussions of going away from. Yes.
You got some input?
Yeah, the qualification, you can say only tech 3s or tech 2s, how many I need. If I had a big shop, it'd be perfect. Then, you could spread out even, 4 tech, master techs on 1 shift, 4 techs on another shift. And so, but right now, in the situation I'm at, I just need the manpower in the shop. So I try to break it up even. Took away the 410 because I couldn't see the reason of getting 2 extra hours for 4 days than having a body a whole day on, 8-hour shift. And that's why I eliminated the 410, there's 2 chooses, we had 410s. And the thing is, we run 7 days out of the week. I gotta make sure we have somebody fixing these buses. And so removing the 410 is because I need that extra day cut. Having a body on that extra day is way better than me asking anybody else, can you do overtime? Can you come in and do overtime? Why have a choose up for 1 day? So now I got the spread out. My workforce is all during the day. And then I got cleanup crew at the night. Just 2 guys and a cleaner just doing the minor stuff. So right now, I don't mind you. I don't want to classify, say I need only 4 techs here or 4 master techs over there, because we don't got enough crew for it. But my input is I gotta have enough labor guys at a shift. So.
Okay. I'm gonna ask somebody to table 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Somebody, I'm a volunteer. I don't care which team volunteers, but can somebody explain to me the difference between the process in our proposal and your proposal?
Which one? 31?
For 31.
Okay.
So, what we gave you was your last proposal, and our last
Yeah.
proposal, including an extra, or the one that we asked for, which is the one we signed off back in 2018.
Okay.
If you notice, there's 4 pages here. 3 of those pages you and I signed off on. The 4th page was added to the process signed off by Amy Lavoie, because once we met with her and Mike Crittenden and, what was his name, Eric Kleiner, we realized we had some gaps, okay? What?
I was just gonna say, where are the 3 of them now? Anyway, go ahead.
Well, there's a lot of folks now at the table, we went from January of 2018.
Does anybody know how to get a hold of any of them now? There you go.
So-
I need to say.
Well, you're still here. You're still here. So when you go through assignment of bus runs and schedules, as we've been discussing, in section 1, it has the, it basically gives it's a description of the, your shifts, 10-hour shifts, 4 10s that are available, or 5 8s, right?
Can I stop for just a second?
Yeah.
Are you gonna just take us through yours, or are you gonna tell us the differences?
Well,
Because I'd like to know in process, how would the process work under ours as opposed to yours? Like, where do they differ?
so, well, I was hoping we could go through them and find if there were any differences. That's why. That's-
If you wanna do it that way, that's fine.
Yeah, because I think it's a day-to-day operational type thing where we do these bids.
Okay.
And when we go through these, it's important that both management and the union are on the same page so that we don't have conflict amongst the workforce when they do the picks.
Okay.
Okay? So I was hoping that if we went through these and had a brief description, conversation about each paragraph to see if, are you in conflict with any of that? Now, I'm looking towards them, obviously, because it's us and them that run the bids. Or if you could tell me, maybe Ms. Ellis could tell me, what is your goal with the bids now? If you have a different idea than what we've been practicing, because we actually thought it was running pretty smoothly. Obviously, it's been difficult during the pandemic because of the lack of workers. That makes it difficult. We've had to do some things that we normally wouldn't do, but let's imagine it in the area of when we have full staff. We really didn't have any problems prior to the pandemic. We were able to quickly fix these things.
All right, but let's walk through it, so.
Okay. So, if you're looking at the one we provided you from 2018, that was originally signed off on, section 1, do you have any issues with that language as it's presented? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, you have a copy of ours, right? The
This
last
is
one?
a
Yeah.
one extract of ours.
Okay.
That helps.
Do they have that?
Yeah, they have it.
Sure.
They just gave us a copy of it, so.
Oh, that was a clean copy.
Yeah, I know, but they,
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the biggest things, one of the biggest problems I would have, we've already talked about this. I see you still, in your calculation provided, it still has a selection of bus there. There's no possible way that we'll be able to allow it to select bus for every run schedule, because that's where we find ourselves in the position that we're in right now, where we actually have inadequate equipment to be able to accomplish our tasks. Because in the past, that was allowed, and that's just not feasible in any transit. And also, when I read this, even when it comes down, and again, the tens, if they had the opportunity to select their days off, I'm willing to give that. Because, but what I don't see is everyone being able to select their days off, because what was happening in the past, I know, again, I was not here prior to the pandemic, but my job when I came on board was to check the efficiencies. Those Saturday inefficiencies that we had, I can't, there's no way that in a transit system I can allow that to occur, because what I end up having is I have a lot of cover board positions that'll be available, and so now I'm paying a lot of overtime for cover board positions, when right now technically what we want to do is we want to be able to figure out, like with the new software that we have, is how to get the actual data to be able to say that this system is working. Because I know right now, yes, the Escambia County Air Transit is running, but we don't have the data that states that it's running well. So I want us to get to a point to where, hey, we can, if a commissioner says, well, what about route such and such and such, I should be able to say, well, this route accumulates this amount of dollars, and these, with this salary, this fuel amount, this preventive maintenance cost, all that added up like they doing, that's what it's done in transit. See, right now we're not able to do that, and by by having the watered down choose-ups that we have had in the past, what that does is that doesn't allow us to actually adequately say, like, this is how much this route costs, so we won't know which one needs to interline more, which one needs to be maneuvered or changed. And so that's why we can't even really make changes to our ride guide right now.
Right.
So we keep attempting to do it this way. As our partnership, ATU and the transit agency management, we'll actually never be able to know what's an actual efficient system for the citizens of Camden County. I just think that right now, that's.
Well, you're waiting for software to come in too for the.
The software, we've already had the notice, we've already had the first initial meeting. It's based on, once we get them all the data they need from us, our intent is to have at least the 2 pilot vehicles by October.
Okay, so let's go back to the buses for a second. How will it be determined how buses are assigned to particular routes?
So, the way that we can actually do it, by which bus goes each route, every bus may run every route.
Correct.
Right, right now currently, we get the data system that says, hey, you know what, I'll just say, Route 60. Route 60, guess what, it may not need a 30-foot bus. It may only need a low floor cutaway, right? So, now, being I know it needs a low floor cutaway, we have 6 low floor cutaways on our books that we have to utilize for Route 60. Now, guess what? When show up for set job in the morning, hey, dispatch those, transit supervisor, hey, 6 low floor cutaways have to be utilized for Route 60. Look at the miles. Okay, well, hey, this low floor, these are 3 options I have today for this low floor cutaway to go out on Route 60. Set operator, they come in, okay, and, hey, I like 1503. That's just which one I like. I like that 1503. Okay, 1503 is available. Low floor cutaway can be utilized for Route 60. Here you go.
Okay, so, so you're saying on a daily basis, buses will be assigned? Basically,
That's currently exactly what we're doing right now. I know in the past, it would be, or again, you got to select your bus. Right now, currently, what's happening is they know which buses are actually available, like our dispatchers. That's what makes the transit supervisor. The transit supervisor, their job is to make sure that they know what assets are available and to distribute those assets according to the routes that we currently have.
How do we assure that they're not going to be used as punishment, in a sense? Look, I'm a senior driver.
I'll let you finish.
I'm a senior driver, and
and
every day I get assigned 9823.
So that's not that. So I'm glad you asked that question because that's what gets me super excited. Because of the past practices that we had in the past, guess what? That's what prevented us from being able to have the actual assets that we actually need in order for us to get. None of our buses should be a punishment. But in the past practice, the things that were allowed to occur,
right,
that has put us in a position to where now I actually have vehicles that are not so good.
You're referring to mileage and.
And so now, now I can say, well, you know what? I know that this bus actually is not a very good vehicle, so it can look like it's an actual punishment. But no, I want us to get to a point to where every vehicle, everyone that is a part of Camden County Area Transit, they're pleased to say, you know what? I can go out there and drive any vehicle because all our vehicles are on the same line, same level, and it's the same performance level. It shouldn't be a punishment.
But it's going to be a while before we can get to that point where that fleet is out there and everyone's feeling comfortable, right?
Well, you know what? I used to say we're going to crawl, walk, run. Right now, by the way things look, by looking at the transit accident management plan that's being provided with I think we're already in the walk stage right now. I just think that we got to stay on board and keep pushing. Well, I don't usually say trust me, but if I say I'm willing to put my check on it, I think I'm willing to put my check on it. We're moving forward.
How much you make?
I just wanted to, for those, the non-operations folks.
Yeah.
So you have an understanding.
Yeah.
Please.
Have an understanding, because we're required by FTA and information that we have to submit for the National Transit Database, which affects our funding based on our formula grants, our mileage on all of our vehicles. So we all know we do have an older fleet, an aging fleet currently. And some of the challenges that we have is that the the mileage on our vehicles
Well,
are low
take care of it.
just over time, that, you know, part of it is because when certain operators are picking certain buses, that means the buses are not being utilized equally. So the mileage is not being distributed equally.
It's all over the place.
It's all over the place. So if traditionally, in your capital replacement plan, your fleet maintenance plan, transit asset management plan, FTA's useful life of a vehicle, plus your miles. So we have vehicles that are older, the miles are kind of, and we have some that are newer, the miles are up to the roof. So when, it's been difficult, now that we're looking at trying to replace a lot of these older vehicles, there's hardly any mileage on them. So that's one of the things we're trying to make sure that we are going forward. We are getting some new buses in, we are working on getting the buses as well from SCAT, that, getting to a place where it doesn't matter what kind of bus it is. Everyone has the opportunity to have a nice bus to use. Because I know that, you know, some, oh, I don't like that old bus because of this, or this one's difficult to ride because of certain things. or-
Eldorados are too slow.
Yes, those kinds of things. We want to get to a point where any bus on the yard is equitable. So those are from a management's perspective, we have to look at it from that perspective because
Can I
it's.
stop you?
Yes.
We're all right with working with you on
We are 100% willing to work.
that. I didn't mean to cut you off, Tom.
Okay, well, I wanted to, for those that had no idea why it's
I need
important
to
to
say
us.
one thing.
That part.
We're already moving on that, and we understand you totally, and we do appreciate it, so I didn't mean to be disrespectful.
But
We are
Tom-
100% willing to move on that issue.
But Tanya and Mr. Kimbrough, we're turning the corner. And when we turn the corner, we're having to look back at all the people that have been there, and we're gonna have to make this progress, but move to that corner and make them comfortable about this, because they're gonna be like, what's happening? I don't get to pick a bus no more, and then, or, right now, they think right now, buses are being assigned because of the pandemic. They think that once we come out of this pandemic, we're gonna go back to the old system. But if we now start to have conversations with them, maybe in safety meetings, and explain what you just did, where you talk about the mileage and being able to obtain better buses for the future, and that it was problematic in the past, they'll catch on to it and they'll understand it. But
I challenge you on that as well, though, because that's where
I will too.
I need you all support.
Obviously.
because that's-
And look, if I gotta stay here for a little while, look, that's a management function, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I think that time to sit around and make sure that every operator is okay with something like that.
I like that.
It's not gonna do it.
I like that, because at the end of the day,
Yeah, you gotta-
it might
you
be,
gotta keep
today you may end up driving a bus you don't really want to drive.
Right.
That's the one you drive today.
Yeah,
And we are gonna-
in a maintenance stance, you wanna have buses going different routes, keep the mileage all the same or close to each other, so when it's time to replace them, you've got no excuse to replace them. And with these emission controls, like that one that goes to Century, you wanna have different buses going out there, so they can burn the calories inside there.
We're with you, we're with you, we're good on it.
So what about section 2? Do you have any, so if section 1 is adjusted where they don't select buses anymore, that would be language we're close on still in section 1?
I think we understand section 1, let's go to section 2.
Okay, section 2. Is there still problem with me being able to examine the jobs and assignments and schedules to communicate with you? Obviously, to have a relationship to make sure that we're all on the same page before a bid is put out in front of the workforce, so that we don't have problems.
That was included in our proposal in section 3.
Okay?
Upon request, designated union official will be permitted to review the choose-up list and seniority list prior to posting.
So I would say this, the only problem I have with your verbiage is upon request. It should be automatic. When there's a bid, when management finishes the bid, it's always in our industry, it's brought to the union, you sit down, the union reviews it on their side, then they bring any concerns they have to management. And all of that happens, most properties lay that out in a time frame. So this happens on this day, this happens on that day, the review happens on this day, and the changes are made for that, and then it's pushed out to be posted for the members. So the only problem is it should be automatic, it shouldn't be upon request. That would be our issue. And that's every property. You can call any property in Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, whatever. It's just a process.
Okay.
I just
Sorry.
want to say, oh,
So lay that out again, Mike, what?
So most, and I've got an email that I'll share with y'all, I'll look it up. For most transit properties, they do a run cut. This is what our run cut's gonna look like over the next 6 months. And then after that, there's a time frame built out over 2.5 months that says, okay, we're gonna do the run cut on this day, we're gonna check it out, look at it, we're gonna send it over to the union for them to look at it for 3 or 4 days. We're gonna meet with the union after that to see if they have any suggestions. After they have any suggestions, there's a time frame to make any changes, and then after that, it goes out to the workforce and is posted for a period of time. So it's a process and it's the same process every single time.
And what do we review?
Huh?
And again,
No, it's
I've
okay.
asked a lot of questions. So what is it that y'all are asking to review?
So in a run cut, it changes, the routes change, a number of things change, the times change. So what we do, Wes, is the contract says you're supposed to have 50% of your runs supposed to be full runs. So we would review that the run cut that you just had has 50% of your runs have full runs, for 8-hour runs,
5 days.
whatever. Then we would look at the time frames, that they're not too long. How many splits do they have? In our industry, we have splits. A guy coming at 3 o'clock in the morning, take a bus out, it's on the road for 4 to 4 o'clock, he's off at 9 o'clock, he comes back at 1 o'clock. Well, in between that time, the whole length of his day is only supposed to be, let's just say 10.5 hours. So we verify that all the split runs have 10.5 hours and not more. So those are the things type of things we review, and we make suggestions from our operators or whatever. So we make suggestions to the management staff, and if it's doable, they go back after we meet with them, make our suggestions, they change them, sometimes they don't change them, and then a final board is put up, it's given to the union and posted on the board for the workers, so they know that they're gonna pick on this certain day. It's just kind of routine, it happens all the time.
Okay.
And Ms. Moreno, that practice is a common practice. That's a common practice in the transit industry, and I agree with that practice. But I think from a management standpoint, the only thing that I don't want, or I would hope that would not happen, and what we sometimes find ourselves in, when we actually get into that process, I just don't want it to, well, I can't say Ms. Larry, we gotta work diligently. I want to take the suggestions from the other operators and officials to make sure that it's safe, fair, and comfortable. I always say that, that's what I'm looking for, safe, fair, and comfortable. But what I don't want it to be is just because I had to make a change to a route, because it should be also at the end of the day, management's decision to make a change of route if it's needed, if it's necessary. And that's where we find ourselves, right? Because what we notice is we have individuals that say, well, that job is just supposed to be this way. The jobs, they can't always be the same. That's what the whole process of run cutting is for, is so that, because the job has to change sometimes in order for it to be efficient. And that's the whole point, what you were just saying, a run cut, that's why you do run cuts, is because it determines the efficiency. And that's the whole point of having the software. When we get the software, Mr. Carter, I know Mr. Carter has probably done his job, and I know Mr. Carter did an outstanding job, right? Because I talk to Mr. Carter all the time, but it's a possibility if the system says that, hey, this route has to be interlined with this one in order for it to be efficient, that route may change. And what I just don't want is to say, well, no, we can't do that don't look right. No, I'm never gonna try to do anything or have anyone or allow anyone to do anything that's unfair to anyone. But it is about making the system efficient. That's what the run cutting is all about.
Well, we understand that when you have the software, it's
Yes.
gonna produce what it's gonna produce.
yes,
Versus what we do now, which is hand by hand,
right,
which causes problems.
yes.
So, we're as excited about the software moving forward, even though the type of software you got, what was it,
It's, the run cutting is,
What kind of-
Casio is the overall company, but Optibus is who's doing the run cutting piece of it.
And so what I'm not used to the handwritten one. So software only knows data, we enter data. So the software will generate and that's what I was trying to tell you was, it will generate, that a run has a 13-hour day instead of a 10.5-hour day. So we review it and we make those suggestions, and then you gotta go back in
Yes.
and adjust it.
Yes.
I'm not used to the hand one, so pardon me to everybody in the
Right.
room, that's kinda antiquated in our
Yes.
industry.
Yes.
But,
1950.
so the whole review process is for us, is to make sure that it's meeting the contractual terms, not to tell the transit management that you can't adjust routes.
Well, I
It's to
get-
make sure that it's, you know, like he said, I like what he said actually. What'd you say, safe? Yeah, so that's what it is for us, right?
And just from listening to how it's been described, that would be my concern, is at the end of the day, management is prerogative to make decisions.
It's in the contract, management rights, we good.
So, I mean, just listening to it, I'm like, okay, sure, but at the end of the day, management's gotta make the decision, how management's gotta make the
Right,
decision.
and for us, as long as it doesn't violate the contract stuff that we agreed to on the routes and the spread time and stuff like that, we don't have an issue.
Okay, sounds like
But the
section,
software does mess up, and I think that.
Yes, that's true. Yes, it's-
Because it's data driven, it's not a person. So
Yes.
it will generate a run cut, and if you don't look at it as a manager, give it to the union, it might not have been caught. So that's our job to say, hey, look, we've got 3 runs over here, all of them going over 10.5 hours, we need you to adjust that.
so if I understand too, instead of saying upon request, you get the actual right to be able to review this.
Right, it's part of
And
the
then
process.
you
Process.
bring any concern, you do 2 things. You bring any concerns to management, and if the manager will consider those concerns, but they may not always agree. And the second thing you bring to our attention is if there's a contract violation.
Correct.
If there's a contract violation, we gotta follow the contract.
That's it.
So, okay, we get section 2 down.
That goes with drivers and maintenance.
Yeah, okay, good. We got section 2 down for both of those. What about section 3?
Section 3, so we have a type of bids. We have the general choose-up, which is done 3 times a year. Elaine, 3 times?
Yeah.
3 times a year. And that is scheduled bid, okay? And if life were perfect in the transit industry, we could have 3 bids a year and that'd be it. But unfortunately, it's not always perfect, so we have a thing called special choose-ups and bump downs. So special choose-ups are generated generally because someone's been out quite a while. For instance, they were out on FMLA because they had surgery, and they were finally returned. Based on their seniority, when they return, they go to what we call the bottom of the extra board. And they, initially, they go to the bottom of the bottom of the extra board, which potentially, based on their seniority, might not be what they want, because they're gonna get a lot of work that they might not want normally.
Wes, do you understand what extra board is?
Okay, that's,
So let's walk through, no, but let's
Yeah.
walk through it. An extra board is a group of operators that you put aside at a markup or
A
a
bid.
bid, and they don't get a normal piece of work. They fill in for where you have slots not available. People call off, you got an open run, you terminated somebody, they fill in for your open piece of work. So you may have 5 extra board people, and they do a bunch of things, but they're really plugging in. So,
ensuring the service keeps moving.
so that's what an extra board is.
And in this scenario, so what happens is the individual comes back, they return, they're forced to go to what we call the bottom of the extra board. So they're kind of a fill-in person for now. But based on their seniority, and when the next pay period comes up, we then, that individual, scheduling with management, we have what's called a special choose-up. And then at that time, that person, based on their seniority, will now get back to, let's use Willie Carter. Willie Carter's out, he's the #1 driver. He comes in, he has to fill, for a period of time, he has to fill in and be on the extra board, doing work, maybe having to work on weekends, maybe having to work late at night. But he knows his rights won't be violated at some point. There'll be a special choose-up worked out between management and the union, because the process is he came back. And then his right of being able to come back and say, I'm the #1, I get to rebid, and I get a new schedule. And
So does somebody roll back to
Yes.
Board?
Yeah, generally towards the bottom of the seniority, that someone at the bottom will row. Or some people actually choose to go there. They actually like that.
So from the management perspective, because there's been times, when there's quite a few of our senior operators that were out on FML that come back. And probably 19, 20, I think was the time I know we were having a special choose up. Seemed like at least every other month we were doing a special choose up. And for payroll and from that perspective, it was a nightmare. Because although yes, from the perspective of, yes, we're doing another choose up because now we have, say, 2 senior operators that have come back from FML or whatever it may be, that are now at the bottom of the board. So if we have a special choose up, and then a good scenario is, I believe, I think it was when Mr. Carter came back, but there was another senior operator, it might have been Jerry Stallworth, that came back literally a week right after him, or right, we had just done a choose up. Just done a special choose up. And literally within 2 weeks, we're doing, within 2 weeks, might have been 3 weeks, another special choose up. So operationally, we were, I mean, we couldn't remember which, and I know it ended up being for operations for management, very challenging, because now we're you know, which choose up we're on, the one that was, you know, June 1st, and the one that we're now on June 23rd, and then also knowing that in the summer, when the beach stops and when EWF starts back to full, we're literally going to be doing at least one more choose up in the next 60 days. So from the point of the special choose ups and how often we do them, for operationally in the past. Now, it may not be an issue now, it may not have as many people going out on FML, we're already, you know, we're not at full staff right now as well, but operationally from management's perspective, if we're doing them the next pay period after that person may be coming back, if a lot of folks are coming back around the same time,
Okay.
it's operationally can be challenging.
I think I understand the concern.
We understand.
We understand
So
too.
how do you do that? Can you cap them? Can you have them no more than so many times a year? Can you have them spaced apart?
When you don't know when a person may be coming back from FML.
But you could have one a week.
So
Yeah.
we heard, we understand. I think to say what you might, yeah, there's options, so it ain't open-ended. But we need to have a discussion. We heard loud and clear,
Yeah.
that it's challenging when it's back-to-back.
Yeah, let's put some structure.
So let us
Discuss that.
discuss it and bring something back for the table for you to consider.
Okay, now the next thing is bump down, choose up.
So bump,
They love that. Look at them smiling.
So, bump downs are generally used, it says right here, as become vacant and opportunity exists for a junior operator. So it's usually tied to vacation. So vacation week becomes open, and that week's, so the individual gets to have a bump down to pick a vacation week. But when it comes to the bids, it could be that, you know, my experience is, over the years, we've used bump down to lessen the blow on special choose-ups. That's what we've used it instead. So when someone returns, immediately there's a bump down, and they go right back into their own spot. And then from that, so here's the example. So you have an employee, they're number 30 on the seniority list, they've been out. Instead of having a whole choose-up, a bid, right? The individual has the right, they've returned because of their seniority, they go right back to their spot, and you're only affecting those below. And generally, when you do a bump down, it only affects certain runs, and it stops at some point. Once you've maneuvered, and a few people have shifted, everything's fine.
That's when it's,
But I just want to also add a little piece in there too, and I hate that Nikki's not here, because I know that we're implementing Chronos beginning of October. Is that correct, Crystal?
Yes.
So that means every time that when we're talking about these particular choose-ups, there'll be a change in the scheduling for flat Chronos piece, so I just wanted to make sure that HR and the clerk's office as far as the Chronos piece, because we are going to the payroll and the timekeeping software.
I see that as a plus.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Kimber, you want to
It's a
answer?
transparent system.
So it's always easier if it's someone at the bottom. We're gonna
Yes.
bump down with someone at the bottom.
Mr. Carter?
The bump down issues occur, and again, seniority, we all know seniority, how I feel about seniority. Seniority is a union. I just, as a management, I just care about, I gotta make sure the buses are out for the citizens and it's safe, fair, and comfortable for everybody. But the part that becomes uncomfortable is when we have the bump down for middle of the pack to the top. We know that because that's when the complaints come from the junior, and then it's never the top that's worried about a bump down. It's always the middle of the road to the bottom. That's and so now, and again, what I'm hearing, like, it sounds real easy with bump down. But bump down, we all know, everyone that's in the transit industry in here right now know that bump down is not an easy thing. And it's definitely uncomfortable for a lot of people. That's not at the top.
Oh, I don't disagree with that, but how do you fix it?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask the
That's
same
an
question.
industry problem that I don't,
So,
do you have any suggestions? I think our language is almost identical on bump downs.
So, tell me again why you do a bump down instead of a special choose up?
So special choose-ups are usually tied to someone who's been out for quite a while. A bump down could be,
It's mostly a vacant job. Most of the time it's vacant because of terminations, or somebody resigned, or somebody is out on vacation. Those are generally.
or somebody
Maybe
quits.
maybe some other times, somebody can chime in.
yeah, but now, it's just, you actually said, what, my opinion. Is there any way that we can figure out a way to intertwine special choose up and bump down?
I don't know if that was my question, but I'm open to hear it.
yeah, I'm interested to hear what you say, but before you say that, what is your thought process of when someone returns after being out?
So.
Like, let's use Maureen Gibson. She's back now, right?
Yeah, so.
She has seniority, right?
Because I'm aware of Chronos and I'm aware of how the actual payroll process goes. Someone being out for less than 30 days for a special choose up or a bump down is an administrative functional nightmare.
Yeah.
Because what that does is, because of course, I see what's being done behind the scenes. Administratively, a special choose up and a bump down causes a vast array of problems, and I would hope that we would not do it for, I'm willing to say, because I know how many staff we have, let's just say we got like a full staff, which is 70. If 3.5, maybe 4 people that's been out for a long time, I can say, okay, all right, but if it's one person, that one person may have to go to the bottom of the board. If it's 2 people, you might go to the bottom of the board. Because what happens when I got ones and twos.
For how long?
I guess I'll put out there.
And I tell you why that's an important question. We just do a bid, right? And the bid's gonna last 6 months. Our bids sometimes go longer than projected. And I'm a senior guy and I come back in, I gotta work 5 months on the work schedule that's out there.
Well, let's do it like this then.
So, no, I'm saying that's why his concern
Yeah,
is
no.
important. We have to learn how to find a
Maybe more
middle
general
ground.
choose-ups.
Yeah, let's do four general, like the normal transit season, well, not to say normal, four general shoes up done. Like if we able to put in there that instead of doing 3 times per year, we do 4 general shoes up, which means that'll be every 3 month period. Now we're doing it quarterly.
3 months or less, they would be
And then eliminate some of
Because
the
if
other.
they're out for 30 days, now that means that
Yeah,
they're.
it could be only-
60
So now
days.
you're only doing a bump down to somebody who's out 60 days or more, and eliminates really how many you doing?
And
Because
we have our quarterly meetings, and then that means we have a
So-
discussion about what's good and
What's the convenience of the quarterly, when you say quarterly, how does it affect your seasonal work? When would be the appropriate time for 4 general choose-ups a year?
So,
What would you all suggest would be the months?
September, we can do it like a normal quarterly cycle, January, February, March. Then April, May, June, that make that open up. I back it up.
You'd have to back it up.
You'd have to back it up.
Starting in May.
So let us have a conversation on it, and y'all have a conversation on what would be the most efficient times for y'all. But I think that through this conversation, it can eliminate, well, not eliminate, but go to what you said, limit how many bump downs and choose downs you can. Because if you implement another general, then you don't have as much widespread of time. So,
Right.
So I think we can come to some understanding and agreement on all of that, to be honest with you. Y'all give us some dates, and we'll have the conversation.
All right,
Wouldn't be, you'd be going, yeah.
I'm looking at your section 4. I think we already talked about that, which is the right to request a particular bus. It says, the transit authority has the right to make the final decisions of the assignment of buses. And every reasonable effort will be made to accommodate operators' request. That's what I think you were talking about. We already discussed that. All right, section 5, I don't think we have an issue in section 5, right?
I don't think we decided that issues.
No.
Operators have to eat at the end of the line.
There's no,
So, just one other thing, because I think we talked out some of the biggest issues already. But there is the discussion of how the choose up the bid, whatever you want to call it, markup.
Process.
The actual process, who does it, and because the process, we have language that says, you know, for instance, if they're out on, you know, we don't have this in place, it's gonna get messy. I was there years ago when we didn't have the actual process in place that everyone understood, because and when it's contractually in the labor agreement, then you can point to the labor agreement that says right there. But when you start to get into this practice, you wanna talk about basis changing, when you start seeing different supervisors, dispatch supervisors coming in there, and they start. I don't want-
consistency.
Yeah, consistency isn't there anymore, right? So, I think it's important, we wanna make sure that if an individual that everybody understands, like we have now, there's a time, it's posted in advance, they see it, right? They know it's there, and if it's my off day, I know it's my obligation to come in on my off day, or phone in to whoever's doing the choose up to say, I wanna do my schedule, right? But if I'm out on the bus, we can't have anyone holding up the process, correct? So that's when
Offer the proxies.
that's why we have proxies, and they have to offer up their selections. But I think we do have a problem, where I'd like to get your ideas of communication, so that someone that's out on the route saying, well, I don't know, I don't have time, I'm on a hot run. I can't sit here and talk to you now, right? Or you're saying, they're out, and so you're saying we want to lead proxies, lead a selection of runs on a proxy. I don't care if it's 10 in order, and then you go through and you say, oh, the first 3 are gone. Oh, the 4th one. There you go. That's your schedule.
I like that.
So how we, I don't know what y'all do, but most of the time, the union official doing it, and I like what y'all say, just let people make as many selections as they want. But when those options run out, what's done is that the union official picks for them to the nearest route run, that they previously had.
So that was.
If they don't leave enough.
They
They don't leave enough
didn't leave enough
parking,
selections, so I agree with that, because my thing was gonna be simply, when we talked about this one, that if a person didn't have a proxy and they weren't around for their choice, for me to do my best to try to get back in their last job they already had, so.
What we usually do is we ask for the union official, so then we don't have to have somebody come to us complaining, Tanya did it, or Mr. Kimbrough did it, and they didn't like me, They, you know, we picked something closely, similar to what's available to what you ran on your last run. And then that's what happens all over this country about doing it, so.
And one of the things that we don't want to happen, that has happened in the past, we don't want it to be a prolonged process of 2 or 3 days that because we're, you know, one person, we're still waiting on this one person and trying to streamline the process so that it's fair to everybody. But that we also have enough options so we're not, basically now we have a operator that, you know, usually a union operator that's sitting there making sure that everything's, as well as with a member of management, just trying to streamline the process, because I know, and Mike, you and Lane, y'all know that at times it was days, and we wanted to try to get away from it taking days to do a choose-up.
So now, when you
You
have,
don't run time slots?
when you have the time slots, and they have 15 minutes, that's it.
Yeah, but they missed up on a couple of them, that's why it took days.
Yeah,
No, so give me an example.
yeah, that's why.
Yeah, because,
We should probably refer to her, because she's
They,
Yes.
involved with this.
caught a lot of things on the choose up. So
As
they
they were
had to
going
stop it completely.
When you say caught, what do you mean?
Like, some routes that shouldn't have been there, wasn't, it was like,
This is hand.
is the route, you know, like, it was one route didn't have the exact time
Manual
frame
mistakes.
right, and then it was one route, they were missing a couple routes on the choose up, and the union official called it,
All right,
so they had to couldn't stop.
administratively, stuff had happened.
Right, so they had to
It
stop the
wasn't,
choose
it wasn't
up.
because, it
No.
wasn't because of the process.
No, they just had to stop it and start all over, so it took a couple of days.
What we're saying here is that because until the software program might eliminate all this in the future, that problem that you're talking about, right?
Right.
But it's manually done right now, and sometimes when you start to get into the bid, this union, I mean, you're gonna be amazed. There are some bus operators. The bus operators know the system better than some management or the union officials. They can look at it, she can look at the schedules right away and tell you, oh, there's a mistake there, because she knows how they intertwine, the way they hook up. And she, oh, that's not gonna connect, that's not gonna work.
So that's
Right?
all the hold up.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That is correct.
Missy Lane,
Yes,
She's one of a handful that are really good at it, right?
those are the attention employees. They run every route, but I
So-
think we're close on this.
So Rodriguez, y'all were having a conversation, and y'all threw something out, and you said, I'm all about that.
That's,
Proxy.
regarding,
Proxy.
when it comes to the actual,
To speed the process up.
Yeah, to speed the process up, when we're going through, the bid process, you have 10 selected jobs, already chosen, and hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 through 9 is done, 10 is open, like that'll be your job.
So
we
basically,
Right now we do 3.
when you put the schedule up on,
3 or 4. 3 or 4.
so Tanya, when you put the schedule up on the board, and you're saying, this is the day we're selecting, an operator looks up, because they're having the chance to view it, they're gonna look up there and go, oh, I'm driving at that time. Right away, they're gonna know I gotta leave a proxy, okay? And if I'm in the middle of the pack, in the seniority list, and I'm number 33, and let's just say there's 60 drivers, I know I'm gonna have to leave that many selections in an order to write them down and say, I want this route first, this one second, third, and go all the way down, right? If I'm the senior guy, I don't have to worry about that. If I'm the top 3 or 4 people, I don't have to worry about proxies. I only have to write down a couple.
Yeah, but I think we still have to cap the proxies.
Yeah.
And the union, if you're first, like just say 5, and if you don't get your 5th one, the union has to pick for you, the closest thing there. Otherwise, you bog down that process. Because you could be sitting there looking at, if you let them have 10 of them, you could be sitting there for extra 10 minutes going, well, that one, we need to cap it at some point.
Our system's not that big. I'm gonna tell you, they're gonna know real quick.
But I'm just saying, not, to me, I don't even see 5 on big places.
Oh, well, so we could do
You
that.
know, so
So
if
we're
you don't have
close?
the cap.
I got it.
I think we're close.
See that? We just gotta put it on paper now.
Right, and
All
so,
about it.
so what our discussions was earlier, maybe you wanna mark that up and get it back to us, because this is what we was talking about. This is,
Which paragraph are you talking about?
this is the addendum, for Article 31, and it says, it's got 3 bullets. It says 3 choose-ups. It says special choose-ups are 30 days, and bump downs are 30 days. Well, if you add the fourth one, and then you guys come up with, I don't know, 45 days, 60 days, whatever, then we only having, there's a possibility to only have 1, 2 at the most in between the markup. So that cuts back on
Are we-
weekly, right?
Are we eliminating bump downs?
No.
By the process we're doing, no?
No. No, you're just stretching it out further and you're adding extra general, so somebody comes back in,
Oh,
they,
Okay, I got
they work 30 or 45 days and then there's a general markup going in effect. So it minimizes your weekly bump up selections because, you know, we should only be able to have a couple of them, right? And we need to add a stipulation in there. And I don't know the verbiage of it yet, but we need to add a stipulation that, you know, we only do so many a month, 2 a month. Right? So if somebody comes back in, because right now, you literally could be doing four a month. If I come back in today, this week, you come back in next week, she come back in the week after, he come back in the
I'm
week
confused
after.
on something.
Okay, but if you have a bump down, so like a choose up, if, they don't choose on that choose up, and then they come back after 30 or 40 days, who they gonna bump?
So wait, I'm with her.
Who they gonna bump?
Yeah,
They can't bump
so-
nobody.
That's why.
So can I make a suggestion? I'm sorry, Mr. Kemper.
Yeah, no, it's fine, because I just wanna throw this out there. It's just me, like, you know, that's why I asked that special choose up and bump down be integrated, because I would prefer to kind of get away from having to do as many bump downs. And if because if we're doing it for a year, that means every 90 days, there's a choose up that's going out there to be done. If someone is out for 30 days, they out for 30 days or more, then they go to the bottom of the board. I know
So the
you
next
make about
choose
So
up.
what
the
he's
next choose up.
suggesting.
And that's what we have in our.
That's why I said we
Well,
need
you
to
have
talk
to
about it,
add
but
it.
it's
The
a.
caveat.
We need to talk about it.
Yeah, the caveat is right now, since we don't have full part-time staff and full trolley operators, it's actually, if you did four, you'd still have to do 2 more because you have to do one at the beginning of the beach season.
Correct.
Because right now we're using regular operators to fill beach service. And at the end of beach season, when DWF goes back to full
When the service changes again.
service changes. So those, even if you did 4 now, just say every quarter, starting in October, every quarter, you still have to do those 2 special, one coming off of this season.
Right, and that's why I said we need to talk, because we can eliminate some of the bump down by agreeing to combine them in a sense and add another general choose up. It kind of eliminates the
Or 2.
frequency of it.
The only thing bump down would really be applied to is vacations.
Correct. So, let us have
Yeah.
if you don't mind, Wes, let us have a caucus real quick. I think we're saying the same thing, as the management side is saying. But we have to understand on our side the concept of what the change does.
Okay.
But before you walk out of the room though, you said in the beginning of this, it was could be tied to seniority, so where are we at with seniority?
We're not there yet.
Huh? We're not there yet?
We're not there yet.
No, but
Where's your issues? Or,
Just need a little more open discussion, a
okay.
little more understanding.
I'm gonna challenge my management team to transit to educate Mr. Marino.
Yeah, but it's not hard, but it all kind of intertwines, right? So it is that one affects the other. That is it. In our industry, it's
Well,
a little different
yeah.
than the norm.
One of my big questions has already been answered, so.
It's not.
Which
That's
is
what
more
we
tied
should
to
be doing.
maintenance.
Yeah, and we should be explaining to each other and being on the same page. That'll help us get through it.
Can I mention something? The last facility I was at, they had the 4 true zones. To eliminate that bumping driver, positions, because it's coming more frequently, you won't be on a bad route for long. So when you came in, especially if you came in like in the beginning of the choose up, they don't want to start another choose up. So you just stood stuck there to the next one, and then your seniority just kicked it back in, and you just flow through the day.
We know about that, but
Was that Gainesville?
yeah, it's Gainesville.
Okay.
But Gainesville is a whole different setup because it's all about university stuff, so it's a little different. Don't wanna get into that in this conversation, but Gainesville is nothing like Pensacola. This is more of a tourism town and military town, but universities, and you work with a lot of universities, the work is totally different.
Yeah. And that's a university system, right?
So, yes.
So,
So what he's suggesting, it happens, because I'm doing the contract down there in Gainesville right now, but it's totally different as a day-to-day process.
Can I ask?
Go ahead, Tom.
Ms. Lane,
Huh?
where's your heartburn in all of this? I can see it in your face. Where are your questions? Where's your heartburn? I
Oh,
can see it in
no,
your.
I'm
in
just
your face.
tired, I'm tired for real. I ain't been feeling good lately, but I'm with y'all on the bump down and because we do have a lot of bump, a lot of choose up and
Right.
bump down. And like I said, as far as the bump down, it ain't really much. That could go away.
Yeah, that's
Because-
where I'm at.
Well, I don't want you to say that, we're closer than we think.
Yeah, so-
Okay,
so-
okay.
so-
I heard that.
I want to add to what you just said, which is, it goes away, and maybe we'll see. But-
Yeah.
Wait.
We want to make that like, hey, we're really working with you guys, but we're already there.
But before you walk out, I just want to say this, So,
Just give us the.
this process, remember this part,
Think about it.
this change that you suggested 4.2, for instance, right? I'm interested in that, and we'll have discussion. But you always keep in mind from your side, I still have to go back and sell it to the workforce.
Now, I don't like that word, we're not to sell it, to educate.
Oh, educate,
I'm not gonna sell them, I'm not a car dealer.
I don't know if you're. So, because it's a different change.
Process.
It's a process that they're gonna have, and they're gonna be looking at you like, what are you doing?
Well, this whole thing though, there's gonna be the new software, it's all gonna be new.
Well, I'm a little cautious about software, because I've heard some bad stories about various software programs, so we'll wait and see how that plays out.
And the changes that we're talking about are changes that happen at different properties, different things. But like we all know, you have to critique it to your situation. So what's going on and what's being suggested is good stuff.
Okay.
And when you come back, if we talk through that real quick, one thing we do want to finish up on is we need to talk about existing maintenance. Because he's here and I will.
I made a clean copy of the memorandum with incorporating the word new.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, sir, we appreciate it. So what we think we came up with, on Article 31, I'm going off of our proposal, because that's what we walked through. We're willing on Section 1 to remove, Mr. Kilroy's and Ms. Tanya's, problem and bus assignments. We said that to you already, but that's not a problem for us. Section 2, there really wasn't any issue on. Section 3, I'm gonna go off of the page that has the outline. We agree with the 4 general choose-ups per year. We agree with the 2 special choose-ups a year, as Ms. Tanya said, there would be 2 more, so that would be a total of 6. We agree to eliminate bump downs, period, but we wanna move and make sure that we move the vacation bump downs, language in vacation, that we have vacation bump downs for when people get terminated or leave or whatever, their weeks become available, that there's a process that's currently being done of posting that time and people sign into it. So it doesn't give you a physical bump down, but it's a process that I think y'all are familiar with, that it's posted, people sign up for it if they want those empty weeks. So we just want to move that language to say over here in vacation that we're having, it don't have to be worded bump down, but we'll have a process for vacation for open weeks. And then we're okay with eliminating the bump down, period. So that's exactly what our conversation was, and we think that would close out 31.
And then with the rest of the regular language of the process.
Right.
Adding in the the proxies.
All right, well, we'll work on that. We'll get together and,
But does that give you what you guys need for operational purposes?
Yeah.
So we made some new business there, Mr. West.
No surprises anymore, just schedule.
Great.
Schedule.
You can do how you said it like that, you remember?
Remember all this as we get to the other articles that I'm
Done
moving
here,
for helping.
came in,
For helping.
choose up the vacation, the way she
And once
did
again,
it.
that helps the seniority piece because now it's an even flow of not being, where everybody's management is feeling like, oh man, here we go again, we gotta go through this whole thing with somebody at the top. It's getting ready to bump down, somebody 2 weeks later is getting ready to do it all over again. So that eases the seniority issue that we're having.
Okay.
The only thing I would say about the vacation bump down though, that Curtis, I want to make sure that's clear. A week comes open, put up on the board, start time when it's posted, and end time when it will close.
When we take it down.
And then, so people had an they had the opportunity to put their names up there, and then obviously by seniority, boom. And then if a week comes open for the person that selected it, just turn around, go put it up for that one, and it sits up there. It's not physically having someone sit there and do a bump down.
And paying somebody to sit there.
Yes.
And do it.
I agree with you.
So it's a cost savings as well. See, Mike, we're about saving money too.
that's what it's all about today.
And then, so next time that .002 can be added into the.
We'll work on it.
All right, so I think what we wanted to do, since we have the maintenance director here, is Jim feels like we never talk about his issues. There's a little situation.
He's been smiling all day. Anything had any issues?
What do you mean? We gave him $900.
I'm making $5 an hour. What should I be worried about? Just think, one day I'll make $173,000 a year.
Oh, somebody read the paper.
Jim, I don't
Hey,
know.
by the way, it ain't hit the bank account yet.
Oh.
If it don't hit the bank account next payday, I'm gonna give the job back.
Neither has my arbitration awards.
Oh, yeah, so just off the record real quick, he hasn't been paid for the reversal of the last arbitration.
We'll inquire into that.
The 10 hours went through. We haven't
How did
received
you pay
anything
it?
on the 24 hours. Direct deposit.
Is it my account?
Yes,
I
sir.
still have my account? Or did you apply it to my wife's account?
We just turned your record back on.
Because we have a
Paid
problem,
you 10
okay?
hours.
My name is on the arbitration award, not hers.
The problem is if she didn't get it, that's the problem.
She got it, she said, no, I mean, we just turned your record back on and paid you 10 hours.
Oh, was that right?
So you might not have even
Yes,
missed
sir.
it, but, so we'll look on our end.
So they're still,
We're supposed to have the 4 days, so if y'all will look at it, we'll
Yep.
look at it.
Absolutely.
And,
Anything on the other.
All right, Jim, what's your issue?
There's been some.
Want to address the on-call situation.
Okay.
What's happening is we're picking, and it's during trolley, beach trolley, you know, when the beach trolleys are running and stuff like that. And they're wanting to use on-call as if somebody calls in sick, well, the on-call guy gets called in because so-and-so called in sick, which is problematic because if we get called in, 2 people get called in on Sunday, we work 8 hours, we go home, and then all of a sudden they say, oh, we got a trolley out on the beach that's got a flat tire at 9:30 at night. Dude, I've already done my 8 hours, now you're calling me again? So there needs to be some establishment where on-call people aren't to fill somebody that calls out sick, because according to the contract, if somebody calls out sick, you go by inverse seniority and start calling people to fill that slot.
I agree with you about that part, but, just for the Sunday schedule, because we don't really got, how you call it, a workforce on a Sunday schedule in the shop. We got 2 guys, we got a mechanic, and a fueler or detailer, and right now it's, a cleaner and a mechanic. So the on-call, That's the only reason why we'll call it on-call for somebody to call and out sick, because those two guys out there, they call out, and what kind of process I'm gonna do at 6 in the morning, calling everybody on the seniority list, and when they see the numbers, oh, this is, ECAT calling me, I ain't answering this phone at 6 o'clock. And you know that's how it is, nobody's gonna answer the phone.
It don't make a difference, you can't force me to come into work either, so.
Exactly,
so
but that's what I'm saying, I'm gonna give you the option, I ask you, can you come in, you're gonna tell me, no. Why would I do that if I already got scheduled to be on call, knowing that if something happens, they gotta come in? Don't mean both of you have to come in and cover that one guy.
It says both people will
It
show
says
up.
that, if it's just like a roll call, sir, like a tire or whatever, but to cover 8 hours, well, but this one time we could change that part.
So are we
Contract says
speaking
that I have to
to
have 2 days off, so if you want me on
our proposal?
on call, on my off days, I don't have to do it.
So this
The
is,
way you're doing it now, you're forcing me to do it on my 2 off days.
Mhm.
That's the problem.
Now,
So that's a contract violation.
I'm guaranteed 2 days off.
Now, if you want me on
I mean,
call.
you're right, you guarantee to it, then I have to make a schedule that's gonna cover the 7 days we run.
Yeah, so that's so.
So if that's the option I have, then that's the option I'm gonna have to take.
So is that due
As
right
long as
now?
it doesn't
to-
violate the
No,
contract.
no, we'll violate the contract, you get your 2 days, it just says 2 days off, so I'll give 2 days off on the shift, and on the thing, so.
So I guess that's the part Mrs. Zambrano was stating, where again, because of the contract, we are contractually obligated to ensure that employees get 2 days off. But what's gonna happen now, right, because I have to cover the service, because that service has to be covered.
You need to hire somebody.
I wanna hire some people, but until I actually have people in the door, now what I'm not gonna be able to do is have that Saturday and Sunday off, which I know Mr. Zambrano wanna do. He wanna make sure that everybody's got a Saturday and Sunday off. But having an on-call to cover that, but if you telling me like, hey, I gotta have my 2 days off, so now I won't be, and now I might have people that gonna be even more upset, because now, instead of having Saturday and Sunday off, I might have to do a Wednesday and a Friday off. I might have to do, I might have to mix it up in order to meet the service, and that's not how I wanna do it, Mr. Allen.
Look, I'm gonna say something, and then we're gonna have to get back on track about working together. If you do that, people ain't gonna come in, they're gonna call off.
But that's why I don't.
So you still not gonna cover, you still not gonna have coverage.
Yeah, so I understand, that's the whole purpose of the on-call.
So here's the, and this is my solution. I'm looking at Mr. Kimbrough, but I'm talking to everybody. So this is why, when we was leaving yesterday, I made a suggestion to you guys. I'm gonna say it with the director here, because I've done this many a times, right? And trust me, you're in a bad position, because even if you get a mechanic hired tomorrow, he's still not gonna understand the operation for another month. So, I think we need to sit down and talk about a schedule that you think you need, and come up with a temporary MOU that says that we will work together on this, and this is how we would outline doing it for a period of time. And we can put in there that we'll evaluate it after 6 months, right? To help you through, in this way the contract is, we don't change the language in the contract, because once you're up and fully staffed, it's not a problem. The problem is that you're in a situation now. So you can be forced to do that. It's only gonna force people to call off. You still won't have the coverage. So we're gonna be in this whirlpool cycle of people doing things, and it's not gonna work for nobody.
Well, in the contract that says I could have on-call.
We're not doing that. We're not saying we're not
So
agreeing to
then
on-call.
why can't you use on-call, sir, because they don't got 2 days off? That's what I'm talking, I want you to explain me why I can't make a guy, have a chooser for on-call, because the contract says they need 2 days off.
I'm telling you, you can do anything you wanna do, but I'm telling you, you can't control people calling off. So if you piss me off, and I'm gonna say this openly and honestly, I'm an electrician for 27 years, right? And I worked at my transit system. You can tell me I can do anything I want. I'm gonna look in this book and find out as much as I can not to get in trouble, to call off and do other things. So while you're planning on me coming in or being on call for you, I'm planning on not doing it. And I ain't telling you. But if we sit down together and we work through a process that's good temporarily until you get manned
you're
up.
under stress.
Until you get manned up. And I didn't say you couldn't have on call. We need to find a solution that works for you and one that works for the employee and work together for a period of time. I'm okay if you force people to do something. Just understand that when you force people to do something, what you're not calculating in your mind is what they're planning.
No, I'm calculating that, because I'm a workforce kind of
Well,
guy.
then we'll leave it alone.
I just want
We'll
to
let you
just
do
make
whatever
sure,
you want to do.
you trying to say, they're calculating, not to do the work.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
No, you just-
I'm saying if you split my off days, and I'm used to Saturdays and Sundays,
I know.
and I get one day now on a Saturday, and I like going to church with my family. I don't care what schedule you do. I call off every Saturday up until I'm right close to being terminated.
So let me ask this
You can't
question.
control it.
I know, you're right, you can't control it,
And you
until
still not get-
you get terminated, that's
then-
what I'm trying to say.
So hang on a minute, hang on.
Hold on,
Everybody
okay.
take a breath.
Let's let it go.
Take a breath.
Let me just add.
So-
And what he's saying is, I'm sorry, Wes.
The only thing I'm saying is, the on-call people don't need to be double dipped, okay? If he's on, if the two-person Nell are on call for the weekend, they're on call for a reason. They're not on call to cover shifts. They're on call if something happens.
So how many people are on call?
Two people.
Two people are on call. One on call during the day, one on call at night?
No, we're on call for the whole weekend.
So no matter what time.
No matter what.
I get the
We're-
first
we're
call,
on-
then you get the next call.
Okay.
We're on call, and we both gotta show up. We gotta show up within 45 minutes of them calling us and being in our uniform and yada, yada, yada.
Okay.
But we don't have a problem with on-call.
Right, that's the issue.
That's not the issue. The issue is, if somebody calls out sick, don't call us, because we volunteer to be on call. Don't double dip us, because we might get called at 8:30, 9 o'clock, or 10 o'clock at night, after we've already done an 8-hour shift, and say, hey man, the trolley's out there, it's got a flat
So
tire,
you,
you can do
so
that.
let me just for more clarification. So you're physically working an 8-hour shift and then you're on call?
No, we're on call for the weekend, okay? Say the trolley breaks down, we go to the property, we get the service truck, we go out, and we say, hey man, we can't fix the trolley, you're gonna need to call a wreck. Okay, all right, and we're done. Once the trolley gets back to the station, if we can't fix it, we're done, we go home, okay? Now, what Mr. Carlos is trying to say is, if Jack calls in sick Sunday, then he's gonna go, well, I'll just call my own call people, and I'll get them to cover it.
A whole shift.
A whole shift, okay? So now I'm working 8 hours. So then, if he has a trolley breakdown at 10 o'clock on Sunday night, I've already done my 8 hours, but he's gonna call me again.
When you're on that 8-hour shift as an on-call person.
You should be
Sunday.
calling overtime first. The contract says you should be calling
All
overtime.
right, so what do you do?
We're at home. I mean, we're at the house, we've got.
Then I'm just saying, when somebody calls in sick, you're complaining about a practice.
When somebody calls in sick,
And you get called in as an on-call person that you're complaining about. When you're called in to cover a shift, what are you doing on that shift?
we're not called in. We haven't been called in.
Okay.
This is a new practice that they're
All right.
involved in. What's supposed to happen is, management's supposed to start with the lowest seniority person and start calling and to fill the shift.
So, let me ask this question, and I'm just gonna throw this out. I don't know anything about this operation as far as boots on the ground. So what if we had volunteers, if you will, that says, hey, Mr. Carlos, somebody calls out this weekend, I'm up for some overtime, call me.
Hmm?
I think that would work. Now, the challenge comes in where Carlos goes, I got my own call guy, I'm looking for 2 volunteers for overtime, should somebody call out? And everybody goes, no, not so much. Now what do I do?
That's why we said we should be sitting down together temporarily talking about an MOU of a process, because We never had that problem before, Wes, and we should be talking through something that's agreeable for both sides. We understand what you said. We heard Mr. Kimbrough say that to us yesterday. The only problem was we didn't have the answer, but if we sit down long enough and talk about it, then we can agree to something that doesn't have to make us fight over the contract as we just did.
The language.
So we're trying to eliminate that and agree to a process that's fair to the guys,
Okay.
fair to your coverage.
Mhm.
But we
But-
can't do that if we just go by the contract.
Well,
Yeah, because the language in the contract was created when you used to have full staff.
Mhm.
It was occasional.
and I'll be
On call
upfront.
was
You're
occasional.
only working with 8 mechanics.
It
Right.
seems to
I'm
be.
with
And 8 mechanics. And look, there's a bunch of us over 60 years old.
I understand.
But we get tired.
Hey, I
You know what I'm saying?
understand. I understand fully. I don't.
We worked out
I
a
don't
part,
think-
we worked out a part in our life to where we don't need the overtime.
I
Okay?
understand.
But they may
And-
be willing to work out.
We may
to
be
get over
willing
the
to
hump.
work, but, you know, help us out a little bit.
And we will. And I don't think Carlos was intentfully trying to mess anybody up. He's trying to get the job done.
Right, he's trying to come in and manage the system.
Absolutely.
But-
He's short-staffed, he's understaffed,
Right.
and I hope, and I'm just gonna be upfront about it, throw it out, and I
Mhm.
hope that we don't have many employees that would call out just to be spiteful.
Well,
Because they really don't speak very highly.
No.
well, I
It
agree.
is what it is.
I agree, but guess what? The
I know what
truth-
reality
The
is.
truth, right, that's
I
all
know
I'm trying to
reality
deal
is.
with, the reality of
Because
it
I've
is.
dealt with plenty of them.
Right, the reality is, you
But-
make a decision that's not good to people, they're gonna do something, and that's the
Well-
reality of it.
We're not intentionally making decisions.
That's why I started out the conversation saying I think we need to temporarily agree to something outside of
So-
the contract and sit down and have.
Based on the lack of manpower.
So let's set this to the side
Right.
for the rest. You guys come back, bring something, we'll come back, we'll bring something next time we meet.
What?
We'll come
If
to
you don't
an
mind, the only difference is, I
In
don't
the
think we need to
meantime.
wait till we meet. I think we need to be trying to do something next week, because he's
We-
still gonna have the problem if not.
We can do that.
We-
It can be a long distance working process,
Right.
if that's what we need to do.
Right, that's all I'm suggesting.
And working through this might lead right into the article where the on-call language is and can help us adjust that language in the future. To address a situation like this in the future by working this out now.
Yeah. And I'm with you, but I'll just say what I'm used to. I mean, I may call the guy all night long, and guess what? When the shift rolls around, he's gonna keep on working. And he's gonna work whatever I need him to work. It is what it is. And I've been fortunate enough to have guys that, hey man, I'm on it. You know, the middle of the night, tree go down, tornado come through, hurricane roll through, we have a flood, we own it. And we work 7 days a week until we don't have to work it no more.
No, we
And
get that.
And I
We
will
get
say
that.
this, because I'm a maintenance guy. You do that when you have a good working relationship with your manager.
Absolutely.
When I think I'm just being done a certain way just because you have a situation and you haven't come to me,
Well, it's
we haven't worked our way through it, if I don't understand why, I'm less likely.
It's more like a we have situation.
Okay,
Wouldn't you agree? I mean,
Yeah,
come on.
yeah,
It's
I don't
more like
have a
we
problem.
have a situation.
I totally get it, that's
Yeah,
why I think
but-
we gotta sit down together
Yep.
with these 8 mechanics and do something that they can agree to help you.
Well, let's do it.
And they should be
Also-
able to benefit with overtime potentially. It's easier to go home and look at your spouse and say, well, I'm getting
You
time
don't
and a
have
half.
to talk about that, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
They're down too many people, not for some of it to be overtime.
Mhm.
That's just a fact. But we're not saying that Jim and them not gonna work the 8 hours, their normal 8 hours. So we don't even have to talk about overtime. We just have to talk about a process that's fair.
So
The
we'll work it out.
coverage, he wants to cover it, give us a schedule that you want coverage. Let us help figure out how we all 8 of us will be willing to work and make sure that that ship is covered. Let's agree to it on paper, only because we don't want no grievances and all these other things to say, well, you know, I'm tired of doing that, the contract says this,
Wait.
right? So we wanna be doing things to work together, like you said. It's a we thing.
And even Carlos has said it's only temporary, but we've seen temporary
Turn into.
turn into 6
permanent.
months.
Turn into permanent.
Nobody's getting hired. Nobody's getting hired. We're down mechanics. Nobody's getting hired. We're down cleaners. Nobody's getting hired. We're down fuelers. Nobody's getting hired.
So
And
that-
he knows it. He
Yeah,
knows it.
he's very aware.
And
I
so-
I mean, and we don't see no changes. We don't see no changes in the future, we don't see no changes coming up. And he goes, well, it's only temporary. What's your definition of temporary?
Yeah. So at that point, it's perception.
I'm with you. So we're gonna work through it.
I think so.
And we've had a good day. I think we've had a good day.
Except, I still don't know where you're at with seniority.
Well,
They didn't say no.
I actually thought there was gonna be a different topic that when we finish these 2 days, that you would, but we work through wages. Incredibly, that's amazing. But I feel real good to know where we're at with seniority. What is your biggest, I need to understand the issues of seniority.
I think you went through seniority. We understood we now understand how it plays out with assignment 31. I think we're going in a good place there. We'll take seniority back and revisit it.
Okay, thank you.
We heard your concerns about it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It's the lifeline of a transit union. Seriously.
I get older every day, you know?
Ain't no future now, man.
Yeah, seniority.
The word seniority
I'm
is used a
feeling
lot.
seniority.
So, what else?
And I think 31 is big too, just me, because that helps out with day-to-day operation.
Good progress on 31.
Yeah.
Great progress.
If you told me, I walked in here today that we'd resolve 31 and wages,
Tool allowance?
I would have told you,
And tool allowance.
You would have said what?
you were out of your mind.
Thought you was gonna say you was buying.
You know what, Mike, can I say this?
Yeah.
Communication is very important, and today there was a lot of communicating. And communication makes us understand where you're coming from. And when you've done the same, we've given it back to you to understand where we're at. That's where I feel these negotiations this day and a half.
And passion means we're doing something. Because I can hear you when I see you passionate. When I know that's an issue for you that you're struggling with, I wanna help.
Thank you.
When I think you're just doing it because you can, it's not a feel good.
I'm
And that's just being honest. That's being honest. If I know there's a problem, we want to help.
We
Right?
appreciate that.
And this is my philosophy, Wes, you never heard it. I'm an IBW guy, come out of the electrical union in Atlanta. And our philosophy was always this, because you only do what the contractors do. There's no work, you ain't working. So our motto is, if the contractor's doing good, I'm doing good.
Absolutely.
The same philosophy here. The county and the transit system is doing good, then we're doing good. Right?
Amen.
So it's not about always fighting. It is about sometimes being passionate on issues, but ultimately, we all want to make sure we're all okay.
Yep.
Like, you know, I've always said, quit while you're ahead. So,
I like that.
So,
I have to use that one day.
I think we should declare today a victory and,
Okay. Yeah, I like the timing too.
yeah,
We can hang out with Pensacola on Friday.
okay.
All right.
All right,
Good?
everyone,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do want to select new dates, or at least put some dates for you guys to consider, so if we can take 5 days.
Yeah, let us have those dates, and then I'll work through
I got you.
available.
I got you.
You know, there is a thing in law that if a judge says, you're arguing a case, and a judge says, all right, I'm gonna rule for you, you immediately stand up and leave the room.
Really?
Yeah, because the other side will go like, well, wait a second, you know, judge, maybe we should let's talk this through again, you know? You do. Because once you're out the door, it's
How
over.
about the 6th and the 7th of August?
I'm out of town.
You out of town?
Yep.
The following week you back?
Should be, yes.
Okay.
Come back,
Mm.
Yeah, I would not recommend your first week back, because you're gonna be well.
Yeah, because you will be backed up.
yeah, true.
So what about either the 17th, 18th, or the 19th and 20th?
That's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
They gotta look, see the board meetings.
We're just looking for 2 days out of the 4 that I'm off.
Thursday, Friday would be better, as long as it's not a board meeting day.
It is.
What was the other ones?
17, 18, 19, and 20.
I'm available the 17th and 18th, if that makes any difference.
Well, that's the,
Is that a Tuesday, Wednesday?
Tuesday, Wednesday before the board meeting.
All right, let's try that.
All right. Thank you.
Okey-doke.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.